Welcome to episode 120 of Drew's Sports Crew here on this Sunday night. Myself, Drew Skyberg, bringing you the news here in the Wisconsin sports world. And look, we just had quite the week of Wisconsin sports, right? Going right away to the NBA draft. We had the Milwaukee Bucks make two selections and two signings. I'll discuss those four transactions here to start the episode, and then we're going to go right away to we're going to preview week 14. Yeah, week 14 already of Milwaukee Brewers baseball. But we'll also do a small recap there on week 13, capping off the win I did predict here on Sunday. And I can say, right? I mean, it was on the prediction challenge, of course, but, predicted or not, it was a win that was much needed for the Milwaukee Brewers. And we'll talk through that and just give some general thoughts on the draft as well. But again, episode 120 here, and announcement wise, at Drew Sports Crew, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Right, find all of your content there. Drew Sports Crew on YouTube if you're watching there, or at Drew Sports Crew on Twitch. And then also schedule wise this week, right, I'd like to highlight that. So this is coming out here Sunday night or Monday morning, whenever you're listening. But then Wednesday at roughly 4:20 p.m. or so Central Time, we'll have an episode of Journey Million Live. And this week, Journey Million Squad, Jared is cheering on the Brewers. So during this prediction challenge, as I'm talking about it, he'll be cheering on the Milwaukee Brewers in New York as they face the Mets. So he'll be gone. And Zach will be alongside myself and Bernie Vandenhoevel. We'll be bringing him back on. Always fun to have him. It's like a Packer theme show, at that point sometimes, which is fun to see. Of course, it's still, we still stick to the Journey Million. We still talk our futures and we talk through our games and whatnot. And we'll be doing that. It's a classic episode of Journey Million on Wednesday, as always, just with three Packer fans. So that will be on Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. Central. And then, right, Saturday morning, bright and early, I'll be previewing a slate of, Major League Baseball. We'll do our DFS stuff. That'll be on Saturday. So that's your schedule this week, nice and balanced. As we've kept it this on Sunday, Monday, Journey Million on Wednesday, but this week with Bernie, so three Packer fans, and then Saturday we'll be having the betting show. So let's get into the episode now here. That was the announcement side here. Let's go right away to the NBA draft. Took place on Thursday. Again, this was in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center, and I don't know. I was just thinking my general takeaway on the draft. Like, other than those first few picks for the draft, it just, for me personally, I just feel the draft is just losing popularity to watch, especially the NBA one. Let me just preface by saying that the NBA draft for me, it's like the All-Star game to not really like the All-Star game where there's different issues, but rather like the loss of popularity is what I find interesting. Right? We knew Wembanyama was going one. We saw, we just saw on Twitter, right, a lot of the draft picks being spoiled. Right? I mean, I knew I was watching the draft. Right? When we were on pick 4, I knew who was going at 6 at some points. I knew Anthony Black was going at 6, and I already knew the other Thompson brother got drafted, and so it's like, for me that was interesting to see. And it's like that every year usually, but this year it just felt, it was like, okay, I just started getting sick of it. Where I was like, okay, I'm going to bed. I'll see who got drafted in the morning, and that was like midway through, and for me, the Bucks had later picks, so ended up being, something where I went back and watched because, the Bucks parts, because I want to see how that went down. But we knew Wembanyama going at 1, and myself and Jared also have a similar take where I think Scoot Henderson at 3 is the Trailblazers got to steal. I think, without Wembanyama in the draft, I think he's number 1 overall pick, any other year. I think that's kind of the talent I see out of Henderson. I certainly would have taken him over Brandon Miller. I I think that was an interesting selection. And that came down to more of team fit. I don't know in the NBA draft how much you value team fit, right? Especially in a day and age where trading at stars is something that's a regular, right? It's a usual thing now these days. So, um, I don't know. I would have went Henderson all the way. Um, but credit where credit's due. Brandon Miller still has a lot of upside there, and he goes to Charlotte. It's a good fit, nonetheless. Um, the Thompson brothers go 4-5 back to back there, and then my other big takeaway, like that was non-Bucks related. Right, I mean, we saw Cam Whitmore fall from where he was often mocked in the top 10, let alone 5 through 7, maybe. Some had him going to the Rockets at 4, even. He goes at 20 to the Rockets. I mean, they end up getting him at 20. I found that to be incredible value. That was probably the fall. I mean, he was the faller of the draft. For NFL terms, he felt like he was the Will Levis of this draft. A guy who we had up in there, but it just depended on how some guys went, and yeah, it just worked out in that case. It was cool to see Omax prosper, right? Olivier Maxence Prosper of Marquette go 24th overall by the Kings, then traded right away to Dallas. So congratulations to Omax, Marquette player there, being drafted. So anyways, the Bucks, their selections, none in the first round, right? The Bucks, what happened was, so pick 36 comes along, and there are some talks, if you're on Twitter or whatnot, there's talks that the Bucks were they had aspirations to move up to the 20s. It sounded more late 20s and 30s to trade up and get their guy. And in this case, their guy must have been here, Andre Jackson Jr. And what happens is John Horst, right? I mean, not many talk about it, but John Hammond, the GM before John Horst, there's some relationship there, right? Former Bucks, right? And now he's president of basketball operations, I believe, with Orlando. And there's some sort of relationship there between the two franchises in the front office side. So, with Magic, good fit there. End up trading a 2030 second and cash considerations. Get this pick. You get Andre Jackson Jr. and you get him at 36. Then we go later in the draft, and then at pick 50, at the last pick, Chris Livingston of Kentucky goes. Now to talk about each player respectively. Starting again with Andre Jackson. Right, I'm a Marquette fan. We talked. Love Big East basketball. I think Big East basketball. I think a big thing about like the players that come out of the Big East that go to the NBA. They might not be the most skilled players, right? I mean, I'm not like when I'm saying skilled, like there's some great Jalen Brunson, there's some guys, but like what they do is they bring, like in terms of coaching, like being coachable, right? I think these guys are, like they are the character of some of these players. I think it's just something that we've noticed out of Big East players. I believe even NBA coaches have talked about kind of that idea as well. So that's where I see like Kobe Jones go 34 to Xavier to Charlotte, and then even talking about Andre Jackson. I think Jackson's a guy who kind of portrays that too, like, watching in games, he wasn't this guy who'd make these big offensive plays. He wasn't like this guy that just like Jordan Hawkins, for example, or Adama Sanogo, these guys who, could score at ease and were really, difference makers on offense. But Jackson was that guy, he was the reliable guy, whether it was defense, putting up great possessions, or just making a great extra pass and whatnot. He did what was he would make the right plays. Is something I think for players, especially for me, when I think like fantasy basketball, it's often tough to put 2 and 2 together because a guy like Jackson might not be fantasy relevant, with what he does, but as a basketball player, yeah, you want him on your team. Like he's a guy you want to coach, and I think that's what makes Adrian Griffin go for a guy like this too. I think there was some say there, and then new coaching staff too. Uh, Under the Budenholz staff, I don't think Jackson's drafted. He would not fit this system. Career 3-point shooter under 30% in college is not going to fit the system. And right, 3-point shooting is not a strength of Jackson Jr. But what is being able to make the right play, right? And I think that kind of was what was the decision maker here for Milwaukee, taking Jackson Jr. at 36. Love the pick. Think they got really good value on him. I had him. I thought he would be more of a late first. Like he'd be going there or like 31 through 33 range. But ended up coming down somewhat to team fit, some trades that were in there. Ended up working out for Milwaukee, getting him there. And then Chris Livingston. This is more of an interesting one. And he's a guy who we think G League is probably going to be a spot for him to start, along with the other two guys signed, undrafted signings. Livingston's a guy who, it felt he almost went into the draft a year early, right? I think next year, right? If he would have played out a year at Kentucky, right, especially with getting that kind of opportunity and volume there, where do we think his stock could have risen? A guy like Livingston, right, 6'6", 6'7". Who knows? I mean, he certainly could have came, first round potentially, depending on performance, right? So I think the Bucks got, him at a value just solely because of that. I'm wondering, and he's one of those guys who had, like I believe he's like McDonald's All American, right? Those high school accolades, but year one in college, not a lot of opportunity, right? With Kentucky in year one, goes to the draft early, ends up paying off as it was a surprise too. Rich Paul, his agent, right, was calling teams and letting him know that he had don't draft this guy. He's got a spot for him at 58. Like he has a spot with the team at the end of the draft. So I'm still wondering about how that transpired. There's talks about this all over social media, and it was like, wow, like that can happen in this day and age. So I wish I had more on that, but that's just a story that's fascinating. An agent calling teams to not draft this guy, especially in this day and age. So Livingston, and it's interesting to see how he comes with this team, but we remember, right, the guy the Bucks drafted a few years ago, right, Georgios, right? And just talking about that, what's his name? I don't know, it's bothering me. Georgios Kalaitzakis, maybe. Um, I gotta look that one up. I'm just thinking about it now. His name was Georgios Kalaitzakis. Wow, Kalaitzakis. I feel like I'm saying that wrong, but like talking about him, he was the 60th overall pick in 2021, similar, and he ended up getting waived, I believe. So, just kind of the talk from that is like he wasn't really like that was something that never really worked out, and he ended up being on the team there to save the team, right, being over the cap and saving some money on the going over the cap, the salary tax, right, the cap space, luxury tax. So I wonder if that's something that could be with Livingston, but I feel like Livingston, there might be some more upside there, just kind of with how his career's progressed so far, being young and whatnot. So I don't think that's the case, but we have to note that this has happened with the Bucks before, 2 years ago, let alone. So those two picks I'm intrigued about, and then there's two signings who I think these guys are going to be G League, be on the G League squad. The first one, Drew Timme, right? I mean, that's a guy who we all know and love, right? Gonzaga legend, right? He is going to be a Milwaukee Buck. If he is going to be with the Wisconsin Herd, we got to go to Oshkosh. We have to go to the Oshkosh Arena, watch some games there. That's gonna be electric if that's the case. I'll tell you that. But right, we know about Timme. Athleticism is the question. Defense is the question. We know this guy can score. Not offense necessarily the question, but scoring at the NBA level, in terms of shooting and whatnot, there are some question marks there. And then we go. Right, Amari Moore is the other one who goes, right, and he's from San Jose State, I believe. and talking about or what he's done. Yeah, San Jose State. He's Mountain West Player of the Year this past year, and he was first team All Mountain West, whatnot. Um, and another guy they get 6'6" is the height on this guy. Like they drafted guys 6'6" or taller, I believe, and Livingston measurements were 6'6", 6'7", depending where you're looking. Uh, so it's interesting to see kind of the way they're going, right? It's almost I just think of the Jason Kidd days with this Buck squad, right? Jackson at 6'6". Think about the length they had, and not to say that they haven't had that in the past years. They certainly have, but I just think with those Jason Kidd squads, sometimes that was the most astonishing thing was, this team they have some guys who the wingspans they are long, so I found that interesting, and I think Moore and Timmy, these guys are going to be on the summer league squad along with Jackson Jr. and Livingston, and I think this year for the Milwaukee Bucks, right, not having a first round pick and whatnot, but I think watching summer league is going to show us a lot for this Bucks squad. I a new coaching system, new staff, new assistants. Right, Charles Lee's even gone. Right, he's with Boston. That was the top assist, Budenholzer's top assistant. This is a relatively, this is a new change. I mean, we haven't had this type of change, this drastic change in a while here for the Bucks. It's been 4 or 5 years now. So if you like it or not, we're going to be in for something brand new. So I think watching Summer League is going to be a big thing. I also think just seeing what happens with Middleton declining his player option, I think he resigns, but things can happen. And I don't know where it's going necessarily. Lopez could leave, which would be a huge loss for the Bucks. But yeah, we haven't had right. We still have some time for free agency kicks off, but quite the draft. And for me, draft grade. You want me to grade the Bucks draft? I'll give it a B plus. Reason right now this perfect A is because they didn't have those top selections, which you can kind of fault them for, but I think they made the most of with what their picks were, and I'm intrigued to see kind of how that goes. I'm also skeptical with the Livingston selection. I like it's the last pick of the draft, so there's not much to expect. But I think a B plus in terms of I like the selections they made, where I feel like Jackson Jr. was probably the best pick in that spot where they were, but I'm optimistic, but at the same time, I think a B plus is a fair grade. It's kind of where I'm at. So that's what I had in the draft. Fun draft. I think the first, right, I said the draft, fun draft in terms of the first 10, 15 picks, but the other half, I find myself losing, losing interest in watching the whole NBA draft as we would for the NFL draft. So the question I pose is, I pose to people is, are we starting to feel like the NBA draft is more like the MLB draft than the NFL draft? There's not a lot of these big trades, big blockbusters, right? We see that we saw Swift go on draft night in the NFL. We saw, we saw the Texans make a crazy trade there with the Cardinals. All I'm saying is my draft spiel is that I think the NBA draft is getting closer to the MLB draft in terms of not as much excitement throughout the draft compared to the NFL draft. The NFL draft, I think, is the best draft to watch live. The whole, not the whole thing, but the whole first round, the first, that opening night, you should watch that draft. For NBA draft, I'm at the point where I think you could just watch the first 10, 15 picks and get away with it. And that's all you need to watch. And then the MLB draft, we know it's just a draft that you can't watch. You can watch on MLB Network, but you don't watch it. There's you see the guys that win. Maybe you look at the first 3 to 10 overall picks, and then you look at who your team got, and maybe look a little bit more about them. But okay, that's my draft rant. If you agree with me, let me know. That's kind of where I'm at, though. And with that, I want to transition here, right, from Bucks to Brewers. Let's switch to sports here too. So we're going to go to baseball here, talk about what is going on with Milwaukee Brewers. They win the series in Cleveland against the Guardians. So we'd love to see that. But look, the Diamondbacks prove they are a top team in baseball. power rankings that come out Tuesday will show you that for sure. Just based on how they performed, look, it's tough for the Brewers. I mean, they almost got swept against Arizona. Burns didn't have anything going Monday, and then I'm at the game Tuesday. They come back, they came back for us. Thankfully, I think Jared was also at that game too. I've been just running into him at games, and then Wednesday, they lose that day game, and it was like, okay, Colin Ray pitches Tuesday, you get a win with him, that's great, but losing Wednesday's tough with Tehran too. It's just been that's the season. It's been just pitching and offense. Brewers only allowed 3 hits. They gave up 5 runs on 9 hits. Also, they faced Zach Gallen. I don't think anyone had them winning that game, unfortunately. But again, Tehran pitches well. Again, it's just like, what do the Brewers do? I mean, offensively, they are one of the worst offenses in baseball. We got to accept that. They score. They put up 7 runs then on Friday, of course, against the Guardians, against Shane Bieber, of course. Willie Adames has probably my favorite home run of the season. His 3-run home run, right? His first home run of that game. He had 2 home runs. His 3-run home run on Friday, June 23rd. If you have not watched it, I'd recommend go watching it. Hanging slider, just pokes it left field line. I say pokes it like he crushed it. It kept rolling and rolling. They win that one 7-1 on Saturday. They lose 4-2, or 7-1 on Friday. They lose 4-2 on Saturday, right? And then they win 5-4 on Sunday with Burns pitching. Although Burns kind of lost his sharpness there in an inning, and fortunately had to get taken out there. But they come through 5-4. They win that one in extras. Right, so that was good to see, and really happy with that win on here Sunday. This was a much needed win for this Brewers squad, but it just feels the offense is still just struggling. I mean, like, just watching it, Julio Tehran's, if I do our weekly WAR thing that we've been doing, Julio Tehran and Wade Miley are your top 2 pitchers in WAR. And they are number 2 and 3 respectively. Christian Yelich leads the team with a 1.9 WAR, Julio Tehran 1.4, and then Wade Miley with 1.3. And in terms of WAR, it might be crazy for me to tell you this, but in terms of WAR, Christian Yelich's contract, I mean, the pace he's on, like, he's on pace to like make that contract look like a value that for like this year's salary alone, which I find astonishing because, like, just based on the number of wins, he's going to probably, right, he's probably on pace for like a 4 to 5 win season, which, they usually say, I believe it was around $6 million is usually what a one WAR should cost. And he's going to exceed that, right? He's not getting paid 30 million at least this year on his contract. So he's going to actually exceed that value, which I find interesting, based on like kind of the rap we've given him. He's hitting the ball, and he's been hitting the ball hard. That wasn't the issue, but he's putting the ball in the air and hitting it hard. OPS at 790. The slug right now is at 428. That's one of the highest he's had since. He leads the team right now in slugging percentage. 9 home runs, 17 steals already. I mean, he's going to be an all-star. Yelich will be a reserve, but he'll be an all-star, which is crazy to think about. Other guys offensively, I don't know where to go. Winker still doesn't have it. 192. Rowdy, 216 average. I'm not going to just throw batting average at you. Let's throw OPS plus. Jesse Winker, 54 OPS plus. So he is way below league average, is what that tells you. Willie Adames, 88 OPS plus. Rowdy Tellez, 88 OPS plus. All these guys are batting below league average. Even Brian Anderson, 95 below league average. Only 2 guys above league average. You got some William Contreras and Christian Yelich. So that's the issue we're having right now. And actually, technically, Blake Perkins is, but small sample size. He's also getting picked off, right? Twice. He gets on the base paths. Yeah, I'm one. This team's got to make a move. I'm gonna say it, Andrew Monasterio. He played well that first week and a half after being called up, but too many mistakes. I mean, he's. I think he's the next guy who moves once we have a transaction take place. I think when Taylor comes back, I'm not sure how the infield would move around, but maybe Brosseau comes back up. But Monasterio is not working right now, unfortunately. I don't think that's a move. Maybe even Terang comes back. It's not working out. Perkins has been okay, but Winker, honestly, it's almost time for him to go back down to AAA. I don't know what's wrong with him. He can't hit the ball, and if it's injury, he was dealing with some neck issues. It could be, but he's got to go back in the IL. Then we need him. We need him 100% for this team to perform where we hope they should perform, right? So that's just been the thing to monitor. For me, is another thing was how Payamps has solidified himself as the setup man. So a takeaway that we had was before the year, Peter Strzelecki was the setup guy. We came in the year, it was like, yeah, Strzelecki might be that guy, 8 guy, and the guy in the 8th, and had the role for the first month, pitched well. He's kind of fallen off. He's faltered. ERA plus now below average, and then just even the FIP and whatnot is kind of high, and they move him out of the role, put him Payamps, insert him into the role, insert even Elvis Peguero. These guys in the leverage roles now. Peguero ERA, right? It's 3, but looking at ERA plus and just other indicators, he's done well. Peguero again pitches the 10th today, does a great job, and then Payamps moves himself. He's your setup man for the Brewers. If you had that on your bingo card, to start the year, kudos to you. That was not thing suspected by many, including myself. Holby Milner slots himself in, as that lefty specialist. It feels like he's kind of taking that Suter role, but like that high leverage role there, and not having a lefty closer anymore. Miller's done a great job. We give this bullpen a bad rap, but if you look at the numbers, Payamps has been good. Milner's been good. Wilson has been good. Williams has been good. Peguero's been good. There's 5 guys right there. Strzelecki's been okay. So all I'm saying is this is a top 12 bullpen in baseball. Yeah, it's a top 12 bullpen in baseball, and that's something the Brewers have going for them. This rotation, although it doesn't have the big names, has been okay, but this offense being, okay, you have average pitching, above average bullpen, and a below average offense, it's not a good combo. And that's where this Brewers team sitting just a few games over 500 definitely is accurate. Now, was it a half game out of first place to the Reds? We'll talk here through standings shortly, but that's kind of what I've been monitoring is how does this team kind of match up before the All-Star game? They're a half game back of the Reds again. Run differential minus 21, although they're 40 and 37. So they're the same record as the Philadelphia Phillies. And the Mets have been struggling. The 35 and 42 Mets, who they will be facing a 4-game set on this long 10-game road trip. So 6-10 on Monday, 6-10 on Tuesday, 6-10 on Wednesday, and then 6-10 on Thursday. They keep it nice and easy. All games are on Bally Sports, and some of them are MLB Network out of market only. But then we go from that Thursday 6-10 game to Friday 6:05 at Pittsburgh to play the Pirates. And guess where it is? Apple TV Friday. They get it again with Pittsburgh. So that is your treat. You get to watch them there. 3:05 on Saturday. It's Bally Sports. Don't worry. And 12:35 on Sunday. There you go. We're almost to the All-Star break. I'm serious. It turns July, and All-Star break seems early this year. July 11th is your All-Star game. We're already almost there. So a few weeks away. And with that, the Brewers, I think Yelich and Williams are your 2 All-Stars. I'm predicting 2 now. Maybe Contreras. Contreras really hasn't gotten the support I thought he would get. So that's where I'm at. But prediction-wise, I have the Brewers going 4-3. how that ends up working out is just how the rotations line up today or this week. Well, the Brewers face Verlander on Monday. They face Scherzer on Thursday. Both of them pitching better as of late. They get David Pearson on Tuesday, it looks like. And that's a pretty favorable matchup, although a lefty. I like the Brewers in that one Tuesday. And then just also how the bullpen or how the rotation lines up. Ray on Monday against the Mets. Don't really like that matchup. How Ray's looked as of late, and then just kind of mapping it out there with Tehran on Tuesday. I like Tehran in this case. I like how Miley's pitched on Wednesday, and then I'm waiting to see kind of Burns is going Thursday or Friday, but I do have the Brewers winning then. Just kind of how the rotation matches out for both squads. I do have the Brewers taking 2 out of 3 from Pittsburgh, the struggling Pirates as well. So I like the Brewers in that. I almost had the Brewers out of sweep. It's just I felt that matchup on Friday. I was just a little skeptical there, so that kind of made me who the Pirates could potentially bring it out. Plus, like not having a lot of rest days, I'm worried about the bullpen there on Friday too. That's another factor. Is is there gonna what guys are gonna be getting work? So I have the Brewers potentially. I have them losing Thursday, but at the same time, I wonder if Williams might pitch. How much he's gonna be pitching and whatnot. That also impacts because we know bullpen hugely. It's a huge part of the game. So that's where I'm at prediction wise. 4-3 for Week 14. And that's going to wrap it up here for episode 120 of Drew Sports Crew. I already made the announcements, but at Drew Sports Crew, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and hope you all have a great week. And thank you all here for listening to another episode of Drew Sports Crew, the perfect podcast for you.